Now, the question is he hanging out to see what Larry does to decide what he's going to do? Or is he just going to make another hit anyway? I'm going with he's hanging out to see what goes down.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure that's probably the more likely of the two scenarios. As we are back at it out here with Scott Brown coming that 1953 Chevy, single turbo and an LS motor. Pretty cool little beat up old looking sleeper over there.
With fender skirts.
Red River Raceway, I believe, is where he runs that thing down in Texas. Little old little track. One of the Day of the Drag, the Continental Star Club. Neat nostalgia race down at that track called Day of the Drag. Well, Scott Brown on the throttle goes through, how about 11:30? 120 miles an hour. That thing's awesome.
11:30 out of the...
On the Grand Prix side of the course. I wonder if this Le Mans actually has a 326. It's got a 326 fender badge on it.
I'll say yes.
You can always put a 389 in it and just say it's a 326, right? It all look the same visually. Scott Brown, 5.3-liter LS engine, single turbo, and a whole bunch of cool pinstriping done on the deck lid of his 1953 Chevy Coupe. He calls that car Capone.
We were watching this live, courtesy of Pep Boys Speed Shops.
11:13, 123 miles an hour, and I believe Scott has kicked that thing into the 10s before, so if he has, as the old, goes 1598 with an 8 at 84.
So have a look at this 54 Chevy up here on the line with fender skirts. This thing's got a 5.3 with a turbo in it, correct?
Yes. Scott Brown from Texas driving the car. He calls it Capone. Found it sitting, not the barn sitting store. I think he bought it like from one of those like storage place auctions or something. It was just kind of abandoned. And just in that, he's not painted, he's not done anything other than add some pinstriping to it. And it's got plenty of little dings and character marks in it, but it's a really cool car. You never really see anybody doing that body style, so it's cool.
You know, the Turbo 5.3 is almost like the new Edelbrock Performer intake manifold. Everyone has one.
Yes.
It's just like, you go to Pep Boys, pick one up, throw it in your car.
Yeah. But the guys at the junkyard, like, they make you take one when you leave. I just need door handles. You need to take this 5.3 away from me. Okay. There's just so many.
Speaking of Pep Boys, thank you, Pep Boys Speed Shops, for hosting this live video feed.
Mustang goes 11:53.6 at 115, and Scott Brown goes 11:13 with a 3 at 122 miles an hour in the hot-rodded Chevy called Capone. Now, Brian did not put down the type of run we've seen him be putting down earlier this week on his last pass. We were expecting this thing to go down in 11:10, 11:0, somewhere in that neighborhood. And the Challenger, working its way toward the start line. It sounds like we got an opera singer in the other room over there. Someone singing Happy Birthday to Tanya, it sounds like. So here comes Scott Brown, the 53 Chevrolet, or is he going to go over to that Challenger? Who's getting down the stripe first? I would lay my money on that tired-looking Chevrolet because, well, it isn't so tired. Scott Brown, the better reaction time, and clearly the class of the field here in horsepower is Brown leaning into that thing. 11:15 at 123 miles an hour. How's that? One of the quickest cars in Daily Driver. It's a low 11-second machine. It's a single turbo LS. I believe it's a 5.3 in there. This 1953 Chevrolet.
Is that a 53? That's looking 54 to me.
I believe it's a 53.
Let me have a look.
You go ahead and do that. As Nate Dial stages his beautiful pickup truck up. Scott, who's built up. The fender skirt's still on it. And ooh, Scott Brown, some smoke coming out of that thing in the 8th mile. The pickup truck goes 1263.4, 108. And the Chevrolet called Capone goes 1272.4, only 77 miles an hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to get out your calendar and actually put a red letter on there. You want to celebrate the anniversary next year. The first time Brian Lohnes has ever beat me on year, make, model.
Boom goes the dynamite. Racer needs Scott Brown. He's got that 1953 Chevrolet 5.3. He broke a piston in the car. He needs a 5.3 rod and piston with rings. Somebody, either in the stands or here, there's got to be a 5.3 piston and rod laying around, or somewhere he can go run over as a junkyard or something. He can knock one out of a motor. But we're looking for a 5.3 rod and piston with rings It's out of a 2002 motor with dish pistons, and he is in spot number 16 over in the pits. It's the green and white 1953 Chevy. Fairly significant at this point because he does need to get back to Tulsa. So a 5.3 rod and piston with piston rings on it, and it's a 2002 model motor with it's a dish-style piston. He's over in the pits. If you know, have, or can get a 5.3 rod and piston with the piston rings on it, he needs it.
I'm guessing there's one lying around the bottom of an oil pan, maybe brushed up against the side of the track here somewhere.
Somebody, yeah. Oh, man. 1987-3 at just 79 had some wheel spin. Scott Brown coming up in that 1953 Chevrolet called Capone. He was the guy we were talking about earlier. Brown melted a piston in this car. It's a 2002 era LS 5.3 Chevy engine with a single turbocharger on it. And at the race track we were at yesterday, the SRCA drag strip in Great Bend, Kentucky. Oh, geez. Great Bend, Kansas. Wow.
Wow.
He got down there and the thing got real hot. It melted through one of the pistons. He rebuilt the engine, or essentially slid a new piston and rod in there, and was able to get here on time and finish the week. This car has gone down in the 10-second zone, but he's had it dialed back running like a 11:10, 11:15, somewhere in there.
And in the left-hand lane, Scott Abbott, a past winner of the Daily Driver race in Hot Rod Drag Week, and this car has been running in the 1170s and 1180s. It looks like his best mile an hour is 118. I'm counting on this guy to hook us up and show us what this air is looking like.
I believe Abbott is the defending champion. I think he won it last year.
I believe you are correct.
See that?
I've learned not to question you, except when I do. Oh, and he cuts the 098. We got our best light of the evening so far out of Scott Abbott in the left-hand lane. Big Block Mopar says 120 miles an hour. There you go. Boom goes the dynamite. 2 extra miles an hour.
11.73.5 at 116 for Scott Brown, and I guarantee that was a safety pass to make sure that the repaired engine was going to handle an aggressive move down there. I think the next time we see that car, it's going to go far. Each other head-to-head as we have 7 minutes now, less than that, 6 minutes right now. 6 minutes until we close the staging lanes for good on this session. 6 minutes until we close the lanes. So Scott Brown, the 1953 Chevrolet Turbo LS engine in the 53 Chevy, went 1170 last time down. The car has gone in the 10s before down in Texas, where Scott hails from. Less than 24 hours ago, this thing was on the jack stands, and they were slamming a piston and a rod into it after they melted one right out of the block during their racing action in Kansas. Scott Abbott, last year's champion in Daily Driver, lines up next to Scott Brown and his well-worn Roadrunner. Big gate job there for Abbott. Abbott got the launch, but let's see how hard Brown's going to lean on it down the top end of the racetrack. Look at that 53 Chevy Charge. How about 11.34 at 119 miles an hour as Abbott goes a Grand Prix side. So Brown with that LS-powered sleeper little 53 Chevy down there. Got to go 11.47. Know the car is capable of doing that. Again, they replaced the rod and the piston on their backs in the parking lot at Great Bend, Kansas yesterday. And Tom Foglin trying to relive some past glory of success in the Daily Driver class. And we're off. Well, both of these guys gave themselves a fighting chance here because the reaction times are near identical, but all of a sudden, Scott Brown is out ahead. He lifts at the top end, and Scott Brown gets the win light. 32nd round winners to the lanes, please. See our television channel here. You can see trucks and trailers headed towards the gate as the party begins to break up here at Drag Week 2014. And the advantage goes to Brown on the lead, but the win light goes to Mike Myers, 1085.